Hi, Ida here. If you're wondering, I have not been wearing this shirt for a week. I've just been shooting a lot of videos back to back because I got a lot of inspiration for for doing videos at the moment. And I just can't be bothered to change clothes in between, just so people won't think that I'm disgusting. Anyway, I was going to do a video now about paganism and witchcraft and fertility, because fertility is a big thing to a lot of pagans. A lot of people would describe paganism as a fertility spirituality or a fertility religion, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. Fertility is a big part of my own spiritual path. But what I have noticed is that a lot of people, when we talk about fertility within spirituality, we tend to talk about it as the fertility of us as individuals. We tend to talk about it as people having children and ourselves having children. So it's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but fertility is a lot more, and having that rather narrow focus on fertility as my own reproduction and the reproduction of other people around me is very narrow, and it's not really what I feel that fertility in terms of fertility spirituality is about, because there are some risks when we reduce the concept of fertility to the fertility of individuals. First of all, historically, women has been seen for a long time, and still to some extent, at least in some parts of the world, as someone who is primarily supposed to be a mother. If you're a woman, your main task in life is to have children and be a good mother. And if for whatever reason you don't want to do that, or you can't do that, there is kind of this you are quite often met with the attitude that there is got to be something wrong with you. And so when we see fertility just in terms of individual humans having babies and having a family like that, we tend to put women back in that very limited and very horribly, disgustingly unfree and oppressed gender role of having motherhood as the main purpose of life. And we don't really want that. I don't, at least, want to be put in that box where having children is the only purpose of my life, and where I'm being questioned as a woman or as a person if I choose not to have children, or if I should turn out to not be able to have children. Because that still happens. I had a conversation with a colleague just like a couple of days ago, where he asked how old I was, and I said I'm 37. He asked if I had any children. I said no, I don't. And he said you're going to have to have children very soon. And I said, well, I'm not really sure I want children. And he went like, but it's going to be too late very soon. You're going to have to start thinking about that now. And it was like, I just felt like it's 2019 and men still, it was a colleague. It's not like it was something that was close to me that had anything to do with my life. It was a colleague. He still felt he had the right to tell me that I needed to start thinking about having children. Which kind of pissed me off a bit, to be honest. I usually get along with my colleagues, but that was just, like really crossing the line. And I feel that is a risk if we focus on the fertility of individuals. We tend to put women back in that box of being primarily mothers. There's nothing wrong with being a mother. There's nothing wrong with seeing that as your life purpose, but it's a problem when we assume that is what all women should be doing, or should at least aspire to do. The other problem, of course, when we start talking about fertility, and just in terms of having children, is that you'll be excluding a lot of people. You'll be excluding anyone who doesn't want children, or who is unable to have children. And I've noticed that a lot of queer pagans that I know, that they do have problems with viewing paganism as a kind of a fertility spirituality, because that makes them feel excluded, because everyone tends to see that as being about people having children, and they feel that that is not part of their lives, that is not part of their spirituality, and so they tend to feel a bit excluded when focus is on that kind of fertility. So I think it's good to think about that, because fertility is so much more. And even when I have seen some pagan literature try to sort of mitigate that by saying that, it's not just about having children, it's about anything that's creative. It's about anything that you do, that you create, anything that you sort of mother, any kind of project that you have or whatever. But it's still kind of, even then, it still kind of implies that, okay, then you don't necessarily have to be a parent, but you have to be creative some way or the other. And if you're not, there's something wrong with you. And I think most people, if you have a very broad definition of creativity, most people are going to find some way in which they do something creative. But it's still kind of limiting when you focus on the fertility of individuals, even if you're using a very broad definition of fertility that includes any kind of creating something, or nurturing something, or watching something grow, or whatever. It's still a bit limiting. And I think it's unnecessary, because creativity, fertility is, it's like the foundation of our existence. There is no reason to reduce that to the fertility of individuals. There is no reason to look at it from that perspective, because that's not really the point. Because fertility is a foundation of our existence. If I have children or not, it's not really relevant, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for fertility. I'm here because my ancestors were fertile and had children. So that in itself, if you ask me, is a reason to sort of celebrate fertility and look at fertility as something sacred. But also, we wouldn't be able to survive without fertility, because we would have nothing to eat if it wasn't for fertility, if it wasn't for the fact that plants, and if we eat animals, that they were fertile and were reproducing. The whole biosphere is about fertility. It's about things reproducing. It's about life. And life is about fertility. That is how life That is how life continues. And that is how life has always been working. You know, from the very first tiny little cell that split into 2 cells, that in turn split into 4 cells, or however many. My math is not that great, but you get the drift. That is fertility, and it's fertility that's driving the evolution that took us from that tiny little cell to being humans and birds and trees and whales. Without fertility, none of that would have happened. And that is the reason why, to me, fertility is something sacred and something that is worth celebrating. And that is why I see fertility as one of the very, very foundations of my spirituality. It has nothing to do with me or any other person having children. It has nothing to do with any of my pets having calves, or I don't have any pets that have calves, but you know, it has nothing to do with livestock necessarily having calves. It's fertility is the way in which this world works, and that's why it's important from a spiritual point of view, to me at least. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's all I had to say about that. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that gave some food for thoughts. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you like this, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.